So people have been asking us about pricing, and we're gonna make a video today talking about that. One of the reasons we charge what we do, and why you should too, is because of fuel costs and equipment costs. Let me show you. Diesel prices came down recently in our area, but it was almost $1 more than that pretty recently. So figure out what your fuel costs are and factor that into your load rates. Another thing we're doing today for equipment is we're going to the trailer mechanic to get the nuts on the end of our axle. What do they call it, castle nut or something like that? Get those adjusted because we had our wheel bearings maintained recently, and we had all new brakes put on. So the bearings are seated in, or whatever they call it, and now they need to adjust it. Well, I got to pay hourly, $100 an hour for a mechanic to work on that. So figure out what your maintenance costs are. I got 2 tires that I need some nails pulled out of, and I use something called Ultra Seal to maintain those tires' air pressure and not go flat on me when I pull nails out. But when I do replace nails, or excuse me, replace tires, that costs a lot of money and time. That Ultra Seal costs a lot of money. You got to figure out what your costs are, and by doing that, you'll figure out what to charge. That's what we've done. Nobody taught us what to charge. We figured it out through failure. So I have a 35-gallon tank, so normally it's around $150 to fill up. A month I spend anywhere from $1,000 to $2,000 on fuel, and I spend a similar amount on dump fees. Dump fees we'll talk about a little later, because every area is so different, just like fuel prices are different, just like commercial auto vehicle insurance is different everywhere. So you got to figure out what your costs are over time, and then learn what to charge.
Dropped your phone off the window.
Well, now we're in Fountain Hills, and to continue this conversation about pricing, I want to talk about costs and how that affects your pricing. So I already shared today, got fuel, paid for mechanic costs. There's all kinds of costs in your business, from oil. We do an oil change pretty much every month. We drive so much, to uniforms, to marketing. We spend a fortune on marketing. You got to figure out what your costs are so you know how you can charge, so that you know what kind of margin to build in, so that you know how profitable you can be, and hopefully that motivates you. So let's turn the camera around, show you what we're hauling away now. So trailer's basically curbside. We're in the garage, and we're gonna haul away all of this cardboard. So this pile is probably 10 feet by 10 feet by 3 feet on average, okay? Now, cardboard we charge differently. We typically charge 30% less than our normal retail prices for cardboard as we do for regular junk removal. And it's the same for tree branches. And the reason why is most customers just don't value it. They don't see something there that is worth paying for. Now there's some other stuff in here like plastic and a water softener and demo bags, and probably some wooden shelving or sheetrock or baseboard, a lamp, but most of it's cardboard. So what we've had to learn is that not everybody wants to pay full price for cardboard or for tree branches. So that's something that we've learned through trial and error. So maybe it's less expensive for this material, but we also drove 50 minutes to be here. So that kind of washes out any savings. Thinking about pricing for jobs, factor in where's the property's location. It's almost 50 cents a mile to drive this truck and trailer, and it's probably more. I think the IRS gives more than that as a, what do they call that on your taxes? Not a refund. Credit, whatever that is, a mileage rebate or something. So what I'm trying to say is figure out your costs so you know what you're able to charge. We had to learn that customers didn't want to pay as high for cardboard and tree branches, so we lowered our prices to stay competitive, but still kept them high enough to where we can cover our costs and we're motivated to do the work. So hope that's worth something to you. That's how we do it. Left it all clean. Isn't that right, Megan? Yep. Atta girl. Sweep it up. Sweep it up. That's why the repeat customers keep calling us. Customer service. So not quite a half trailer, just about.
I tried to pack it in tight.
Yeah, you did good. Tetris master. Stop we're going to is actually an estimate right here in Fountain Hills. It's an in-person estimate. We're not going to haul anything away today that I'm aware of. That might change. But it's an in-person estimate to remove a loft bed. And we try to do pickups the same time that we do estimates so that we can keep our costs down and therefore keep the customer's costs down. They tend to appreciate that, but sometimes they do require an in-person estimate separate from the date of the pickup. So you got to factor that in. It's a higher cost, more travel, more time. So you have to charge more for that. Well, what turned out to be what we thought was going to be an in-person estimate was that, but also a removal for some other debris. So I was talking earlier about cardboard and tree branches. Tend to price those a lot less. You can see why. There's just so much air packed into them. You cut up your arms and you got to use tools, but customers just don't value them as much. So that's help you out on pricing there.
All right. So the people want to know about pricing. And what are some of the biggest factors in how you decide?
Yeah, so it's funny, I see in the Facebook groups constantly people are posting pictures of stuff and saying, what would you charge? I don't think I've ever done that one time myself. Not that I can remember. And nobody helped us figure out our pricing. We started with a pickup truck. And we had an 8-foot bed on it, and we put walls, wooden walls, and just made it plywood in our driveway. So there's about 4-foot walls on it, and we could pack yards in that thing. And we stacked it tall, but we would charge people $250 a load in that truck, and people paid it. And then we saved up and bought a landscape trailer. It was 6 feet by 12 feet by 4 feet, and we could put a lot in that too. And so we charged $600 per load with that. And that seemed to work, but nobody told us to charge that. We had to figure that out, and we were guessing when we, slapped a price tag on our truck, but it seemed to work with the budget that we had at the time and what our expenses were. But what I can tell you is there's a few main factors in figuring out your pricing for the customer. The first one is their location. How far are you driving? Like today I drove 60 miles to get to this property. That's a long drive. Versus if it's in our town, it's across the street, it's in our neighborhood, it's our next door neighbor, all of those people are going to get a different price. So where's the property's location? That's number one. The second one is accessibility of the items. Are you going upstairs, downstairs, basement, backyard, attic, into the shed? Where are you going? Or is it curbside? Is it in the driveway? Is it in the garage? Because those are different price tags. And you should let the customers know that. If they want price based on convenience, leave the items where they are. If they want the budget deal and the discount, then they should bring everything out to the street. And some folks, you can kind of read them, you just let them know that. Hey, if you want a price on the budget program, bring everything out to the street and we'll knock some bucks off for you. The third factor that's a big one is volume. So everybody says, hey, my trailer's this big, my truck's this big, how much should I charge? Well, you got to figure that out on your own based upon your expenses, first of all, how much margin you want for profit, what other haulers are charging, your level of customer service. Does your style of business demand a higher price, or are you less professional showing up with no label on your truck, no uniform, you don't communicate well? Well, you probably can't charge as much. So those are some factors to think about. And then something else to consider is how much labor is involved. Like, are you cleaning up a 10-acre property where you got to move your truck 100 times and you got to walk miles to pick stuff up? I mean, that's a big deal, right? Or are you disassembling stuff? Are you bringing out specialized tools like jackhammers to break up concrete? That costs more. You got to charge more. Another one is weight. So if you're hauling a yard of rock and concrete, well, that weighs a lot. If that's mixed in with other debris, then you maybe got to take it to the same landfill, or maybe you can go to the inert landfill. If you got a pallet of tile to remove, I mean, all these things weigh more. And so you got to figure out how much you're supposed to charge. So that's just a couple notes on pricing. Hope that helps. You guys still in the truck? We didn't film it, but we actually just did another job. Customer called. They had a 2-piece sectional, like an L shape, and each piece was like 3 feet by 6 feet, and it was up 2 staircases in a outdoor stairwell for a condo. So we just knocked that one out. We're at the dump. Truck has a cradle in the back. That's what that wooden thing is. But yeah, about to roll over the scales and unload. And we got more work to do. A couple more jobs to do this afternoon. Our schedule's kind of changing. But I did want to make a note about another note about pricing. That's kind of the theme of today. If you have to change your schedule around because a customer has an emergency, you should charge more for that. If you need to go after hours or early hours outside of what you're normally working, you should charge more for that. Don't be the cheap guy. We'll probably share some notes at the end about the cheap haulers, but I just encourage you to charge what you think what value you're bringing, and moving your schedule around like we are today for one customer. You're contributing more value than what most companies would, and so you got to charge appropriately for that. Hope that makes sense. Job we're doing. It's all this debris curbside for a repeat customer, and there's a big chunk of carpet that some animals made a mess on, so we got to get that too. Oh, that's what I'm getting. Got a battery down there on the golf cart. What do you say, Meg?
You're getting the dirty carpet.
I see how it is.
I'll get all this.
Deal.
Earlier you were gonna tell us about what you think about cheap haulers.
Yeah, and you know what? I think these comments carry over to any business that's where there's a contractor or a service provider that's undercutting what's generally charged in the marketplace. And there's a reason why companies charge what they do. Oftentimes it's because of licensing, permitting, education, specialized equipment, specialized knowledge, specialized insurance. There's all kinds of reasons why there's a general average pricing for a certain category of service in a certain market. That's, I believe, common knowledge. But what we've learned is that it costs extra money to do certain things, and we can see why some businesses would choose to not have those for a short-term benefit. It's a shortcut, is what they're trying to do. My dad taught me that shortcuts eventually will cut you short. Here's an example. Insurance. This is a common one that comes up. In fact, we've even seen haulers put it on their trailer that they're actually insured because so many other haulers are not. I think we spend about $7,500 a year on insurance currently, and that's going to expand quite a bit as we hire more employees. But a big chunk of that's commercial auto. Hundreds of dollars a month on commercial auto. And if you're cheap, you'll just say, oh, I'll just use my personal. I'll use my personal auto insurance. It'll cover me. It should cover most stuff, right? No chance. Talk to Toby from Wisdom Insurance. He'll get you educated. Personal auto won't do anything for you. If you're in a wreck, if something comes flying out of your trailer on the freeway, causes an accident, you're liable. Yeah, you're going to court, man. You're losing your business, most likely, if you don't have good coverage for commercial auto. I mentioned the trailer. Another example is tarping your loads correctly. We've seen a lot of landscapers, and I'm assuming people that just aren't charging correctly because it's kind of like carries over in other parts of their life. How you cover your load. You know, if you're thoughtful and careful in certain areas of your business, I would suspect that mindset carries over into other parts of your business. We try to be super careful about our trailer, and we are careful about it. We tarp our load every time. We don't haul stuff without it. We put how many bungee cords are on that road? Like 11 bungee cords?
12.
12? That means 12 off and 12 back on every single job we do. That takes time. And if you're cheap, you don't have time in the day for extra things like that. And so you choose to cut corners to save time so you can do more cheap jobs. I just think you're missing out and you're putting people's lives at risk. Here's another example. If you're cheap, you probably cannot afford the marketing that your business really needs as like rocket fuel to get it going in the beginning and then sustain the growth long term. So one example of that would be a well-built website using appropriate website building technologies. And I'm not an expert on SEO and all of that, but I've spent a lot of money since we started our business. And what I've learned is that Wix and other forms of website builders do not offer the same advantages that technologies like WordPress offer. And most do-it-yourselfers or people that are trying to be cheap may not know how to build a WordPress website, and it's not like paint by numbers or connect the dots, whereas like a Wix website would be, right? So that's an example, is your marketing budget is probably pretty low, and not having a proper built website is a huge oversight. And that was a mistake we made in the beginning. We started with one of those kinds of websites, a Google website that was free, and they built it, and then there was a Wix website, and then that wasn't ranking for any keywords. Like, what are we doing wrong? Finally hired the right company to help us with a WordPress website. What else, Megan? Cheap contractors and cheap businesses tend to attract cheap customers. And cheap customers, in our experience, are often higher maintenance customers. That's been our experience. They ask a lot for a little bit of money, and that doesn't feel good when you're a business owner, because you know you're not making a lot of profit, and so it tends to affect my attitude. If I price something way too low and I realize that, I'm like, oh no, I just shot myself in the foot. Now I'm wasting time. I should have charged correctly and then enjoyed doing the work. So when you charge correctly, you attract a different type of customer. What else, Megan?
We also see a lot of illegal dumping where we live.
Yeah, people want to cut corners there too. Yeah, we spend over $1,000 a month on dump fees, typically. We should look at the annual numbers. I forget what it is, but it's a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, today alone, we went to the dump twice. They were both minimum fees, but it was still about $100 that we spent today. I know a lot of you guys have a minimum fee of $100.
Yeah.
And it's worth charging correctly so that you can dump correctly. Another example is permitting. Our county requires an inspection of our equipment and a permit on file with like the Solid Waste Division, or whatever they call it, Department of Environmental Quality or something like that. And if you're cheap, there's a good chance you're not going to fill out the paperwork, you're not going to do the maintenance inspections, you're not going to do all of those things. Here's another example, customer service. That's a big deal. Investing into technology, whether it's accounting software or CRMs for customer relationship management, or maybe it's other types of software that allow you to serve your customers better in a way that allows for better communication. That's a big deal. Today alone, 2 customers said that they were communicating with other haulers and those companies just never showed up, or they wouldn't call them back. That's either an example that you're overworked, understaffed. It could be a lot of things, but if you charge correctly, you should have enough finances to be able to hire either technology or people to step in and support you. Here's another big deal, sustainability. That's my word of the year, is sustainability. If you want to be sustainable, you need to take care of your body. And that's what we were talking about getting massages yesterday. Like, you got to be able to afford to maintain your equipment and your body, and that's not inexpensive. I was going to physical therapy twice a month just for little tune-ups, not because anything was broken. That cost a lot of money. That was a couple of grand out of pocket for the year. But was it worth it? Yeah. It allowed me to stay in business, allowed me to keep working. If you're not charging enough, you're probably getting overworked, and you're going to end up hurting yourself because you're not taking care of your responsibilities. Just a couple thoughts. I know it sounds like a rant. It's the same stuff that we always think about but never usually say. And since we're making a video about pricing, I just encourage you, if you're not charging enough, raise your prices. And just watch how some of the things that we talked about come up in your life and in your business, how your customers change, right? The type of caliber of customer that you can attract. If we showed up to some of the homes that we get invited to without a name on our truck, without a uniform, without a proper communication over the phone, they'd tell us to leave. And a lot of times people have said, oh yeah, your name on the text message matches the name on the truck. Believe it or not, so many people have said that. But we spent money and invested time to get proper magnets and signage on our equipment. That wasn't free, that wasn't cheap. It wasn't like a stencil from Lowe's or Home Depot where we spray painted it on there. We didn't make the magnets, we hired a professional that knows what they're doing. And it still looks kind of homemade. We need to get better signage next year. That's something we're working on. So you're always growing and leveling up, But as you have resources, reinvest in your company and just see how that produces incredible blessings in your life. So just a few thoughts from Megan and Garrett.